Hello everyone. Welcome to Wasted Wanderers Pod, episode 24. We have three interesting stories to discuss today. So let's just get started. The first one is about the Chinese AI companies that are leveling up. In particular, this AI model called Kimi K3. So China just open sourced this super smart AI model for free, and it immediately escaped its sandbox to cheat on a test. So what does that mean? Uh, it's not actually China. The Moonshot AI company in China uh, have this massive open weight model, Kimi K3. It's like a huge model, like as big as Anthropic's, and it's uh, free as free can get. Uh, you can download it, you can run it on your own hardware, and they released it, and it's making people notice and is allowing developers worldwide to download and run this top tier intelligence for free. And so it's basically disrupting Anthropic and OpenAI's paid monopoly. But what interesting about the story is, so as part of the release, the Kimi K3 model discovered some network leak during its testing, and it actually went straight and hacked a website and kind of forged its uh, credentials and tried to game the test. And that's interesting because it's been happening recently with all models. Like there was a report by for Anthropic and OpenAI, both of their biggest model also kind of did this. Like they escaped their sandboxes and are running wild and doing some hacking and things like that. I mean, this was bound to happen, but again, like I think it's nothing out of the ordinary. It's like you write a script, it can do the same thing. But what's interesting is that because this model is open source, now there's a big leveling field with the frontier labs. So throughout this year, it felt like the frontier labs have some kind of a moat. So Anthropic released, I think, Fable, and OpenAI also released a capable model, and everybody was raving around it. Oh my god, like they're so much ahead of the competition, they're going to corner the market. And then Kimi K3 came out, and it's as good as, or like, I would say not as good as, maybe 90% as good as the Frontier Labs market, but the cost is like less than one tenth. I mean, you can host it for free, but uh, realistically you're going to use it from some cloud provider and it's going to be super cheap. So it's pretty interesting where the landscape is going. There's another story related to this, but before that, Abhi, your thoughts?
So the way I'm seeing this whole AI race is uh, it's the same as the EV race, right? But with software, it's very difficult to restrict anyone from using whatever they want. Hypothetically, well, not even hypothetically, China has banned the world's internet, but people still use VPN. People still get out onto the web, use they use Instagram, they use Facebook, they use YouTube. There are Chinese YouTubers. There are Chinese people on Instagram literally making a career of impersonating Donald Trump. Um, so it's very difficult to actually ban something in the world of software. So with EVs, you can say that okay, we won't have Chinese products. You come up with a reason for it. National security, blah blah blah. Okay, it works. You can't. BYD is not allowed to sell vehicles to the US, and that's how Tesla continues to dominate. Now, if BYD shows up, how many Americans will actually buy a BYD car, or how many will it actually outcompete Tesla or not? We don't know, and the way that works is we won't know, at least for some time. So from the story, it is saying that the Kimi model is basically as good as one versions below the frontier AI models, especially the OpenAI and the Anthropic ones. Now, that means Kimi 3 is not as good as Fable and not as good as Soul, but it is as good as GPT 5.5, and I guess Opus 4.6 was the previous release of Anthropic's Claude. I think the big advantage the Chinese models come with is that they are open weights. You can tweak them to train them on specific data sets. And what we are seeing in the industry is, since the frontier lab models are basically getting more expensive, don't get me wrong, the per unit token cost is decreasing, but the overall reliance on these models is causing the bills to skyrocket, which is now almost forcing companies to come up with a hybrid AI strategy. Simply, it's very similar to the hybrid cloud strategy. You don't only have your services on AWS, you have some on AWS, some on Azure, some on GCP, some even on prem. That's what's happening with AI models. You're using a mix of these models to try and reduce your costs. It's a given that this will keep happening unless the US government decides to outright ban or declare Chinese models illegal, which by the way is a legitimate way of going about this, because China has already said so, right? You can't use outside internet that easily in China. So if the US were to take such a stance, it won't be completely unexpected. um, I don't know if I support it or not. I frankly just don't even have an opinion on it, because, as I was saying before, restricting usage to software is near impossible. So, sure, if you make it outright illegal, people won't use it openly. Uh, that doesn't mean they won't have a VPN in their house. I'm not sure how effective would that be. I think the frontier labs need to realize that at some point the model is only getting better with respect to metrics that only the AI engineers understand. It's like consultants making very beautiful decks, PowerPoint decks, and the only people who give a fuck about them are fellow consultants. Sometimes clients don't care about how pretty your deck looks, they just want the bloody work done. So it's or you have a state of the art editing software where only the most professional of editors understand what the real benefit is, but when I'm watching a movie, the difference is so minor that I really don't care. Or let's bring it even closer to home. When you're watching a video on an iPhone, there is literally no difference between 1080p and 4K. Unless you are that kind of a viewer who's gonna dissect every pixel on a video, on a YouTube video, um, congratulations to you. You're probably born a billionaire and you don't have to think about anything else in your life, but it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things unless you have like a 60-inch television where you can actually see the difference, and it makes an appreciable visual quality. uh, it's an upscale to go to 4K or 8K for that matter. it, the frontier labs of the American companies, even the Chinese ones, they'll eventually get to a point where AI will become a commodity. It won't remain a standalone product. It just cannot survive as a standalone product unless there is a mass release of AGI in some form or the other, where you have a robot that can literally come do all your house chores over the weekend. You rent it, for $100 a weekend or something. Unless you get to that level, and I've seen these robots fold clothes and stuff. Oh my god, it's horrifying. I mean, they can do some of the easy tasks, but it's a long journey to getting to a point um, where it's true AGI. These robots look like robots. They are robots. No denying that. They need to be charged, and they are definitely not for mass consumption yet. Till such point, AI will remain a commodity, and this whole battle between which models are better is becoming more and more irrelevant as far as a lay user like me is concerned. I'm not an AI engineer. So to me, it doesn't even matter. If I run, again, as I've said this before on this channel, if I run out of free credits on ChatGPT, I just go to Gemini. If I run out there, I go to Claude. Problem is, Claude doesn't make images, so sometimes I'll try Grok. Now, Grok is being a bitch, saying that, oh, it can't generate an image or blah 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 or something along those lines. Fine, I'll go to Mistral, I'll go to Cohere, I'll go to DeepSeek. It's just such an endless list that I'll never run out of my free credits. So, JD, you
Yeah.
want to go to the second one?
Yeah. The second one is interesting because it kind of ties into the first story. One thing I want to tell kind of about Anthropic is Anthropic, because it's the best uh, frontier lab right now, is lobbying aggressively hard to get regulatory capture on how AI models are released. Um, and this is kind of part of its tactics. So, Anthropic argues that Chinese AI firms are illegally harvesting intelligence from US models via something called distillation, where you query a model 1,000 times and you compare against your own model, and that's how you get better. And Anthropic leadership warns that unguarded open weight frontier models from foreign adversaries present massive hacking risks that cannot be recalled or patched once released. So they're saying, like, oh, we are the nice ones. So please ban these Chinese models. And it's funny, like, they claim Chinese AI models are a national security threat, but the critics are saying they just fear cheap open source competition. So, like we've discussed before, Anthropic itself has trained their models on millions of books without paying authors. They actually settled a lawsuit on this for $1 billion. So it's very weird that they say that Chinese companies are doing this industrial scale distillation. I mean, they came up with the term. And this is kind of, I say this because this is kind of related to the second story. Like, the AI startup plan to dispose millions of books. So this is actually not new. This is a loophole in the US copyright. So, Abhi, if you are a AI startup and you want to quickly train your models and you don't want to pay the authors because it's expensive getting consent from millions of books authors, right? There are publishers also in front that are going to get their cut. So, in the US, if you own at least one copy of the book, you technically have copyright, or not copyright, you have argument of using it as fair use. So you can train a derivative on it and then you can use it. So that's what AI startup companies are doing. They're buying millions of books, they're ripping off the covers, they're scanning them, and because they at least have one copy, they can claim fair use. And by the way, this fair use loophole is also being debated in another court case. Um, but I mean, yeah, that's the thing. Like, all AI companies are doing this, even Anthropic. So I don't even get the point of banning models in the US. Like, okay, say you've banned the models, Chinese models in the US, but you can't ban them everywhere, right? Developers in other countries can still access it. So now you're just handicapping your companies, domestic companies, because they are being forced to use this more expensive domestic versions instead of cheaper versions. So, I mean, that kind of defeats the purpose of competition, right? But yeah, Abhi, your thoughts?
See, I find as repulsive as I find what Anthropic has done, it's legal. They can do it. They can buy a book, they can rip it to pieces, feed it to an AI model, and then burn it. You don't associate that typically with buying a book. You expect to, flip the pages, read it, gain some knowledge, hopefully donate it to a library or leave it for your kids or something. But it sounds repulsive, but Anthropic is doing, at least according to this story, the most legal thing among all the other companies. The Metas and the OpenAIs and the Microsofts, at least according to this story, they are all openly using something called LibGen, where they can just download pirated copies of books. Um, the story also highlights that there was some email chains or some communication within Meta where MZ was referred to as having approved usage of LibGen to download books, and again, allegedly that is Mark Zuckerberg. I have no way of knowing. I have no inside news on Meta. I don't really care for it either. But it's just funny that after all the nonsense, like Anthropic is the best. It's I'm literally on a philosophical note. I'm reminded of I'm a Hindu, and Hindu faith has four slices of time, and this one, long story short, is supposed to be the worst slice of time that we are living in. And this is like bloody proof for me, where we are basically saying that Dario is probably the best among all these people. And you know why he's the best? Because at least he's buying the books and burning them. What the fuck? What kind of a world do we live in? But it is legal. You can buy a book, you can scan it, and you can train your AI model on it. You don't just have to read it. It's under fair use. Now, where I where I have a dis where I think this becomes wrong is if you're going to download pirated books and then train your AI model, that becomes a problem. If you're going to download, you know, copyrighted content off the internet, not just books, it need not just be books, it can be online publications, or just content that is sitting behind a paywall. If you're going to use that to train your AI model, that I definitely have a problem with. But if you're paying for it, you're getting your material, then heck, you can do whatever you want. Unfortunately, that's the law, and we live by the law in Canada and the US both. So I find it I find it disgusting, but after at least reading this story, I also find Anthropic convincingly the most legal player in this whole scenario. As much as I find that to be a circus presentation, where we are literally deciding which elephant can bloody ride the unicycle the best. Um, there's technically nothing wrong in what Anthropic is doing. I don't want all the knowledge encompassed in books all over the world to end up in a fucking AI model. I'm not for it. But till such time that you, one, you don't amend the law, two, you don't actually catch them after that amended law. And more often than not, such a law will have to be applied prospectively, not retrospectively. Only if you catch them after you pass the new law, only then can you actually do something about it. Um, and yeah, you're gonna have to plug the loopholes. So yeah, that's my take on this one. All right, guys, let's go to the second one. I find this one, I found it like almost like I wouldn't do it, but it's just that this person had a very, I think in this case it's a male, so the testicular fortitude, yeah, okay, a US man accused. So yeah, the testicular fortitude this gentleman presented is, well, brave but also very foolish. Like, the story goes on, the story highlights on this one that okay, on the border the rules are not as black and white. There is a gray area. Now it looks like this person, he is associated with some sort of an organization in Atlanta which is protesting against cutting down a forest to build a police training center. Now, the argument presented by this man's lawyers or legal help is that you are trying to, it's just a fishing exercise where you're trying to get some evidence of this person without having to get a warrant, because at the border, um, the clear line between the person's rights versus the rights of the CBP is a little blurred. Historically, such cases, I think, they tend to go in the favor of the CBP because the border patrol can search, can can look at your personal stuff to ensure that you're not a threat to national security. How do you prove that you were actually not a threat to national security? So courts tend to rule in the favor of the CBP. But man, this guy was really. I also think in a moment of defiance, he just maybe had some technology built in where this passcode will delete everything, and he just decided to give it to the borders. I think I think overall this was poor judgment, because from whatever I've read about this Atlanta organization, these people don't seem to be criminals. At least I have not been able to find anything that incriminating. So by that extension, I don't think this person would have had anything criminal. And what we have to understand is, okay, let's say this is a phishing operation. They decide to, twist something around and then claim. It has to go to courts where the judges, where the judiciary and everyone will have to look at both sides of the argument. So it doesn't just happen that okay, CBP finds something and they take you to court. Yeah, if they try to arrest you, then okay, based on what they found on the phone, but there will still be legal due process. So I think it was a very stupid decision to give a passcode where it wipes out everything. I mean, that's just clear. That actually tilts the case in favor of the CBP. Why would you want to do that if you have nothing to hide? Um, yeah, that's what I think. JD, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say first of all, I would tell the viewers, don't even think of attempting this if you're not a US citizen. Like us, me and Abhi will never try this because we are well traveled, and the last thing we want is, to go to some unmarked jail. there it is true that rules are a little different for US citizens versus everybody else. US citizens have a bit more rights, but as Abhi said, it's kind of vague at the border. So I was just looking through what rights do US citizens actually have at the border. So they have the right to re-entry. So that means CBP cannot deny a US citizen entry into the country. Like, that's a fact, right? They can stop them, they can maybe question them, but they can't turn them away, kind of, right? Now, this border search exception uh, is interesting. So, if the US border people are doing like basic search uh, under no suspicion, they can do that. So they can manually scroll through your phone, photos, text, local files without a warrant, right? But if they want to do an advanced forensic search, that requires reasonable suspicion. Um, Now, it's interesting because you can refuse to provide passcodes. So anything physical you can refuse. You have the legal right. Uh, Now that said, they can keep your phone. They can argue with you. That's within their rights. But if you put in the code and it actually destroys the evidence or whatever they were collecting, now they have like reasonable suspicion. So that's the what happened over here. And there's other stuff here, like what if you don't have a passcode, you have biometrics, you know so it's kind of in a gray zone right now. So I think that's why it's heading to the court, because it's not clear what the result would be. So if they go to the court, go to the trial, a court rules on this, so there'll be a precedent, because this is uncharted waters. um, but I wanted to take the other side of the argument, what the privacy advocates are saying for this is they're saying like, this is setting a precedent where using open source privacy software is treated inherently criminal behavior. And the OS that this guy used on a phone is called Graphene OS, that explicitly built to provide a pin feature that if you enter a normal pin, it'll unlock. But if you enter this secret pin, it's going to destroy all the data. So the privacy advocates are pointing out that refusing to unlock a phone leads to an indefinite device confiscation, and citizens are being stripped of meaningful autonomy at ports of entry. But yeah, as Abhi said, I agree. Like, you know, you're at the border, your rights are not where you think they are just because you're a citizen, and there's a lot of leeway, a lot of gray area. So I wouldn't advise doing this by anybody, citizen or not.
Yeah, and it's
But
not just US. I mean, US stories are just well known just because spotlight, but don't I mean, you think you'll get away safely if you did something at the Canadian border? No, you'll get fucked. Or for that matter, anywhere in Europe, or for that matter in India. Like, you do something like this, they'll just grab you. At least in the US, you're getting legal rights. In the Western world, you'll get legal rights. In other parts of the world, they'll just take you away and you won't even be heard of ever again.
yeah,
Like,
tried this in Russia
you
or
can
Saudi
have your
Arabia.
graphene over. Yeah, try it. Yeah, okay. In Russia, they don't even. The bar for tolerating nonsense is a lot lower. Like, God, it's Russia, man. Like, I mean, yeah, US just gets bad light just because all these stories are so well known. Like, US is constantly being reported on, talked about. Not that the Americans really mind that, but you try doing this in like in the Middle East, like oh my god, like oh shit, just don't do it. Doesn't matter what citizen you are. Doesn't matter which country you're trying to enter. Are you trying to enter your home country or a foreign country? Just don't do shit like this. You can have your graphene OS, you can have your pin which will destroy the phone. Just don't use it at the border. There are probably other scenarios in life where you could use it. I hope you don't get into any of those scenarios, but this is just not one of those. Um, Anyways, guys, let's go to the last one for the day. Um, JD, you want to start off?
Sure. So, European football just declared war on FIFA, threatening a total World Cup boycott over $20 billion private equity deal. And this is their statement. UEFA is the European football governing body, and right after the FIFA World Cup that got over, which by the way was like the biggest sporting event this year by far, and FIFA earned a lot of billions of dollars. FIFA announced that they're going to be uh, converting the FIFA format, World Cup format, into a more of a investor friendly format. So, investors can buy into it, the whole competition. Now, yeah, the European football uh, clubs and UEFA, they released this statement saying they're against it. Like, this is a huge deal in football. This has never happened before. It's like a civil war. So all 55 member association unanimously voted to boycott all future FIFA competitions. So that means if this continues for 4 years, the next FIFA, there will be no Europeans being represented because the clubs will say, hey, you can't play in FIFA World Cup. So I don't know, maybe India will have a chance then. But uh, the FIFA president, Gianni Infantino, proposed creating a new $20 billion commercial subsidiary and selling a 20% minority stake in private investors. And the core objection centers around how private equity fundamentally alters sports governance, right? You bring in money into the sport, it changes. And Europeans are worried because they see it as an attack from uh, how football used to be, and it's now becoming more Americanized, like NFL or NBA and things like that. I mean, if you live in North America, in Canada or US, this is the norm. But I guess for these European people, it's a big deal. And the UEFA nations, as I said, account for 55 of 211 voting members, so roughly 26%. And they generate a vast majority of global broadcasting revenue, sponsorship value, and of course they have the best players. So without the powerhouses like France, England, Germany, Spain, FIFA's $20 billion evaluation might collapse instantly. So this is UEFA wielding its ultimate nuclear option to force FIFA to abandon this ownership. So that's what's happening right now. Would love to hear your thoughts, Abhi, on this.
I downright support UEFA on this. I don't want to see private equity as a rule ruins everything. Look what they did to Southwest, from being the poster child of a good American airline, surpassing Delta more often than not. It's just become a shitty airline now. Um, Look what private equity has actually done to Tim Hortons, which is, and for all Canadians who may not know this, it's actually owned by an American private equity company these days. Um, yeah, from 2016 to today, like Tim Hortons has become rubbish. Com- like I think they, I think they were bought in 2019 era, 2019-2020 era, and yeah, it's become crap. All the yeah, by definition, private equity ruins brands, ruins companies, and ruins anything that the whole enterprise has to offer from a brand value perspective. Their aim is to standardize everything, everything looks and feels the same, there's no differentiation, and you have no option left as a consumer to get anything different. So, hands down, support UEFA on this. I also feel UEFA will probably get their way out if they choose to stick to it as they are saying in this statement. I have some doubts on how long they'll be able to stick it out, but given that Europe controls the largest football leagues in the world and they also have the best football players in the world currently. I mean, okay, sure, Messi, but Messi is, he's not going to be there for that much longer. He can choose to be for as long as he wants and he'll bring in lots of brand value. He's just not the same player that he was. Or well, I guess he was given this last World Cup, but still. So, I mean, hypothetically, if this does last 4 years, can you imagine a World Cup without Lamine Yamal, Erling Haaland, Jude Bellingham, Harry Kane? Yeah, these are just uh, Kylian Mbappe, Osman Dembele. Like that's going to be a useless World Cup. It's not going to be worth watching. I'm telling you, if the European teams are not there, I'm not going to bother buying anything. No subscription, forget tickets. I'm not even going to bother watching the games. So, and I consider myself an average person. If I'm thinking like that, there are many who are thinking like that. Not just in Europe, all over the world. Your large population countries, India and China, they also watch football. They're just no good at it. Not yet anyway, but they watch it. India has a huge fan base for all EPL clubs, for the La Liga clubs. I'm pretty sure it's the same in China. So if UEFA decides to stick with this, they will probably win it. UEFA to football is what India is to cricket. India decides what happens with cricket, whether anyone likes it or not. And then you have Australia and UK, which are sort of like junior partners, and everyone else is pretty much useless. When it comes to the money, when it comes to the investments, when it comes to power, live with it. That's the reality of cricket. That's the reality of football. You have South American teams that are really good and they produce awesome players. But in terms of money, they just don't have the club. It might not be as lopsided as cricket, but okay, let's look at all the great South American teams, right? Brazil, um, very mediocre economic prospects. Argentina, economic shithole. Um, Anyone who think when you, I mean, it's being revived by Javier Milei, but it's not going to happen overnight. He became president 2 years ago. And anyone, like, just go watch a 20-minute video on how Argentinians deal with currency, right? it's 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 an economic nightmare. Chile is the one country that is very sound overall, and Uruguay is another one. I don't know much about Paraguay, Bolivia, and all the other ones to make a sensible comment. Venezuela, we all know what happened. Colombia on the uprise, but still, can it match something like a France or a Germany? No. Mexico, and I think that pretty much covers all the major ones apart from the Belize, Ecuador, Nicaragua, and oh god, and then you have the smaller ones, Suriname, French Guiana. No one even knows about them. So yeah, if UEFA sticks to it, they will get what they want provided they actually stick to it in exact words that they have mentioned here, that they will not participate in anything because there is no need for FIFA to exist if there are no European football teams. That's what I think. Anyways, guys, that brings us to the end of this episode. JD, any parting thoughts?
No. Thank you everybody for watching. We'll be here next week. Sorry we had to take a pause last week because one of us was traveling. But yeah, hope you guys are having fun. Let us know in the comments what you like, what you don't like, and please do subscribe.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend and see you guys same time next week. Have fun.
Bye bye.